Since our last Checkmate confession, some blues have turned yellow. Want to tell you that the president's agement is at the helm of the national bird. 51% of the youth within Uganda and Kampala are neither in employment or education. We want to tell you that we have a new police commander for the Kampala Metropolitan Police after the rising crime rate that we talked about in the previous episode. We will also tell you of the rumor that the RSF militia that is backed by the UAE might be in the country, and that and more. This is the Checkmate, and we are in week 8 of 2026. We will tell you much more in this episode, but was just trying to tell you in the introduction on what we have for you today and what we will break down as the major stories. But to discuss what I have said and more, or the major stories that made headlines in this week, is the usual suspect, Nicholas.
Thank you, Harold.
Where is the money?
I think you know the people that have the money.
How would you actually classify Kampala wealth? Which groups have the money?
Kampala wealth is in different... You can be in Kampala, but Kampala is in different wealth stages. There's what we call Kampala A.
Which one is Kampala A?
We will talk about it during the
that
show.
would be interesting. Someone said that Kampala has many countries within.
Yes.
There are those who relate with the political capital. There are those who belong to the old money. There are those who are sharp, the Indians, and they know where to find the money. And then there are those who just are hand to mouth.
Survive.
We survive.
Hustle.
Yes. And then there's also a new TikTok nation that you don't know they are celebs. Well, if you don't, like, it's a whole different world altogether.
It is indeed.
But thank you for making the time today. I hope you are well.
Pleasure is always mine to be here, and I hope our viewers are doing well. And we're excited for this episode.
Perfect. So, for the benefit of our viewers, for this week, we are going to talk about, of course, what has made the most headlines this week, the defections, the party defections here and there, and we'll tell you about the history and break it down. And along that, to join into that, we'll talk about the state of opposition politics in Uganda. We'll also tell you about Reorganizing Kampala, the story of the traders, traffic, infrastructure, and the whole real status of Uganda's capital. We have seen very many videos and pictures from Ethiopia and what they've been able to do. And maybe we'll tell you all a little bit of the comparisons in the figures of our capital and the state of our air and the general setup of our capital. We'll also tell you about Uganda Airlines, of course. You had me hit on the president's agement being at a helm and the new interim management. And finally, we'll tell you some of the stories that have made the headlines as in what was taking place in court this week. This is the Checkmate 256, and you are welcome on board. Nicholas, we dig straight into our first topic, which is basically the cover of Defections. We can talk about the major headline being bad parking, crossing from FDC to the NRM. Bad parking meaning in Nsibambi. So Nsibambi finally came out and was unveiled at the NRM offices. I think present was the Speaker of the Parliament of Uganda and the NRM Secretary General, Richard Todong. Among the things that he said at his unveiling was, of course, what we saw coming. If you watch our previous episode, and among the things that you talked about was the format of the people that just go to State House, and you talked about people who have made peace with the status quo and maybe want to earn cake and want to identify more with the NRM. People will discuss and say that it's like you buying the ticket to the Titanic after it has already hit the iceberg. That's the stage at which he has joined the party. But other people will discuss and say that this is a political failure right now looking for relevance. But he's not the first one that has defected. We've seen faces from the speaker, the deputy speaker, Christopher Chavazinga, Betty Kamya, the former IGG. Chibanzanga, yes, sorry, not Chavazinga, I beg your pardon. Beatrice Anywa, Henry Maega, Emmanuel Lutakomo, Florence Nachiwala, Anthony Akol, Ojara Mapenduzi, Joyce Nabosa. We can go on and on. Formerly opposition that have since made peace. and started and declared their allegiance with the National Resistance Movement and started to work with the government. In the story of Nsibambi and the former defections and how they have either been incorporated or used by the system, what should our viewers know, and what is the tale from those happenings?
Thank you, Harold, and good day, our viewers. I want to welcome you to today's segment. And like I said, it's always a pleasure to come here to go through the news events of the week. And I hope that wherever you are, you're doing well. Now, Harold, to understand the defections, you have to understand what drives the political parties in Uganda, right from their formation to where they are now. Yeah? Because when you say someone has defected, yeah, from the FDC to the NRM, from the FDC to the NUP, from the DP to the NUP, like we saw most of Buganda last election cycle.
2020.
Yes. And from the NRM back to opposition, like we have seen, you know. I feel that today our viewers can be given a small background on what exactly are they defecting from.
Good.
Now, personally, I find that the political parties in Africa, especially, yeah, lack an ideological depth that should clearly, yeah,
say that if you stand for this,
yes, that clearly puts a difference in the principles of the party. Yeah, there are two significant political parties in the US. Yeah, that is the Democrats and the Republicans. Yeah, same as the UK, the Labour Party and the Conservatives. And in these parties, the difference is stark on almost everything.
That's true. If it's abortion, you're
yes,
this side,
if it's abortion, there are liberals that are trying to advocate for it. There are conservatives who are saying no. If it's gay rights,
America first. If it's gay rights, yes,
it's the same thing.
If it's gun rights,
if it is gun rights, you have traditionalists who say no. True, you know, this is our tradition. You know, the American nation was actually formed on, you know, putting power in the hands of the people. Yeah.
If it's an immigration policy, it's clear.
Thank you.
Which side of the aisle are you?
Which side of the aisle? Someone. That's why defections, the other side, are hardly a thing.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. But also, and these are not in just these current issues. The issues even trace back to the history of the nation. For example, one of the major reasons why the Civil War happened in America was the question of slavery. Yeah, because most of the northern states in the north woke up one day and said, you know what, the Unionists, they said they developed a moral sense and were like, you know what. Because by nature, most of those northern states are progressives. They are liberals. So they woke up one day and were like, it's immoral to hold slaves. Yeah? But because the 1,000 states, the later they called themselves the Confederates, the economy was largely based on slave labor because of cotton plantations down south, most of the southern states that have even since remained, most of them largely conservative. Yes. Yeah? And of course, Republican. Yeah? Were like, no, we cannot overthrow slave trade. So the election in 1960 of Abraham Lincoln, therefore, would start the steps that later started the war the following year in 61. Why? Because Abraham Lincoln, his side was clear that we want to get rid of slave trade. Yeah? So that was the biggest issue. But you can see that from back then, in the history of the nation,
there was identity.
Yes, the ideological difference is already.
I get you.
Yeah?
It's black and white.
It's black and white. There are those that are progressives. There are those they are liberal in nature. There are those that are conservative. All back to our values.
Built on these principles, we can't change them.
Thank you very much. Now, when we come to the formation of political parties here in Uganda, for example, yeah, the formation of the political parties here in Uganda in 1954, when
Musaze.
not Mrs. I wanted to first talk about the formation of the DP.
Okay.
Yeah. Chiwanuka. Benedicto Chiwanuka and his friends formed the DP. But how do they form the DP? They form the DP first as Catholic, leaning Baganda. Yeah. And most of their leaders are actually people who had gone to SMAC.
Sure.
Yeah. So what the ideology of a party that won the first election to take the country forward from the colonialists has been reduced to the identity is that you must Catholicism has been built on religion, has been built on tribe, Buganda.
Then an alma mater identification.
Yes, can you imagine to a level where the identity of a political party can be traced to where you went to school? Yeah. So imagine I am here supporting the NRM, defending them because I went to Ntare and
president. That's why
went to Ntare at the same time. Can you imagine that kind of thing? Yeah. Or we are here supporting a party because we are Anglicans or we are of this religion or of this tribe.
So whether we agree with the principles thereof,
yes,
as long as the bigger thing that we identify with it stays, then we make peace with it.
So and that is what sometimes I don't have good thoughts for the colonialists because they knew exactly what they were forming. You can trace the problems of Uganda, of post-colonial Uganda, especially the reason it was called the marriage of convenience. It was going to fail. It was set to fail from the very start. That you have put the weight of a nation on something, on a house of cards that is built on very weak coalitions that are more emotional than they are ideological. You see that kind of thing. So that is, you can trace the problems that happened to this nation in 64, in 66, in 71 to the formation of this political party, to the lack of ideology. At the time, the whites handed over this country to the KY and UPC. Yeah, you can trace the genocide in Rwanda to exactly the same thing the Belgians did there.
That's true.
You can trace the disorganization in Congo to how the Belgians even continued to the Belgians, and then of course that time of the Cold War, how the West continued to intervene in the Congo, the elimination of Lumumba and the upholding of Mobutu Sese Seko. So when these parties are formed, actually when UPC is later formed, by Milton Obote and his people, it is premised on opposing what DP stands for. So anyone who was not Catholic and who was not Moganda, putting a lot of on Baganda, now joined the UPC. So UPC de facto became a party of Protestants that have an anti-Buganda sentiment. That's why DP was very popular in UPC was very popular in the West, because these people saying, but these people of the Kabaka want to dominate us. So you can't build a nation on a country that has a Kabaka who is a leader of one tribe
out of over 50
out of so many tribes. So what about Ankole? And these are the questions that we should have asked ourselves at independence. How about Ankole? How about Busoga? How about Acholi? How about the people in the East? Are they going to accept that the Kabaka will become their president? And the Kabaka is someone who puts the interests of the Buganda first, as he should, because this is his kingdom. You see? So from the beginning, we lacked the ideological difference. The formation later of the political parties that we have seen in our lifetime, I think, was a reform agenda that metamorphosed into the FDC, and that was a righteous forming. It was people who were clearly against
the rule of Museveni.
Yes. How he was channeling the NRM, and how he was taking it off the path that the framers
of the 1995 Constitution had framed, and what he had promised
in the bush and wherever. So when they come, they form the FDC. And their difference is, we shall return to constitutionalism. They start to check the excesses of the NRM. That becomes the ideology. Shortly after, in I think 2016, this gentleman comes with Amam Babas comes with
Go Forward.
Go Forward. Go Forward is basically a house conflict with the NRM.
It's actually a demonstration of a failed internal coup.
Yes, you promised me this, you have not delivered it, so we have formed our own thing to go and, So the ideology there is the man, Amama was not moved by any ideology. He's moved by the fact that this was my time to be president. Yeah? Which is what you promised me. You didn't hand over to me, so I am going with some people that we pursue that case. So there is absolutely no ideology there. It's just that we failed to agree, so I am off. Came
the CPs for Luchamzi.
Those ones.
I actually wanted to classify them and also tell what they represent. If Betty Kamya, if it's Luchamzi, if it's Chapa Karuhaga, if it is there was another, if it's Abed Bwanika, and the many, because we have over 30 something. The representation fits in another side of the narrative, and I know you will get there, of individualizing and making a career out of politics.
Yes.
Well aware that there's no national change, because the same thing, I think that the closest we have had of an ideology in a political party, in my opinion, it's UPC more than even the NRM. Because ignore the virtue of political involvement, not personal involvement, that was in Uganda, right between 1971 and 1995 election, where it had Museveni and DP for Semogerere. That in between, though UPC didn't have a candidate, there were scores of people that, even with an absent Obote, wanted a certain direction that UPC represented. And in the discussion of political parties that represent people, you would even find a place where UPC has a bigger legacy in ideology than NRM will actually have post-Museveni. So the smaller political parties, and it can even go to the economic discussion of what they were getting with the money for political parties that were represented in parliament and etc., with the people just pitching for money from the democratic fronts in the US and in the UK and stuff like that. But that vacuum that you're talking about, the lack of ideology, the personalization of causes, is it the biggest driving factor to say, even when you're talking about defections, it's just people changing causes to say we have those who are for the ruling government and those who are against, and there's no further strata of what we call political parties here in Uganda.
Yeah, because you see, when the ideology now becomes religion, becomes opposition,
yes,
and even becomes what shade of opposition this is, it affects in two ways. Yeah,
go there.
One, what happens is that, for example, in that time that I was describing about, when DP was Buganda Catholics, yeah, and you have to have some shade of supporting the Kabaka. It means that naturally politicians would not rise up in the Uganda region who would have subscribed to the ideology of the UPC.
I get you.
That means that if there was a wonderful leader with a wonderful
mindset, nationalistic,
yes,
and
he wants to do things for the people, but they are Protestant in Uganda, they will not go through. Why? Because traditionally the people had been inculcated that our ideology is not issues. It's not what do you think about the democracy? What do you say about the issues affecting us now? No, it is about who are you as a person. What is your identity? Do you yeah? Are you a Catholic or you're not? And some of these things, by the way, it's not, and that's why I said at the start I said Africa. Why? Because
it's general.
It's general. You have seen in Nigeria how people every election cycle keeps swinging back and forth from the ANC, from the PDP, and I think the APC. Just keep swinging back and forth. Take an example of here, our neighbors here in Kenya. Yeah, in Kenya it's actually even worse because for them because their politics is so tribal. Their ideology is, how do we get tribal hegemony? How do we get
dominance on running political space in the country against the other tribe?
Yeah, take an example of say Odinga. Odinga fights for space. Yeah, because then Kenya was in one party state. During the KANU days of Moi. So Odinga fights really a lot for the return of multi-party democracy in Kenya. Now, in 1997, when the space opens up, I think that was the first time that Odinga ran. Now, Odinga runs on the ticket of NDP. Is defeated, becomes fourth. Sure. And runs again in 2007.
Yes, against Mike
Kibaki's second term. Mike Kibaki runs in 2003, then also seven.
Yes.
In 7,
what happens in that election?
He comes under Orange Democratic
as a prime minister.
Yes.
After the loss in the election.
He comes under ODM. You remember the post-election violence, 2007. In 2013, they have formed another
alliance
all together.
Yes.
Yeah, I think that one was called. Was it CODE? I think it was called.
I forget the
CODE.
name, but yes.
CODE. Yeah. For reforms of whatever. It was a coalition.
Yes, it was.
For the reforms of, that was 2000.
That was 2000 from 2007.
2013.
Yes.
In 2000 now.
Now that's the Kenyatta one. Yes. Kenyatta one.
He again comes in a new coalition of NASA.
Yes.
Yeah? The super whatever. Yeah. Super allegiance. And more recently, Azimio la Umoja. Meaning that the problem with our political parties, and this is going to form consequently what I'm going to say about these defections, is that people are not in political parties because of some kind of ideology. Yeah, they're in political parties to position themselves for what takes them to the power, to their dreams of being in parliament. That is why it is hard for now to be an NRM candidate. Yeah, and in Uganda region become an MP without an invisible hand. And I'm speaking this. Sometimes when I speak, I want to speak to people who I don't like this whole going behind. Now you're going to come and say, Mr. Kabanda is in Kampala Central, or this woman
so I have to qualify it, yes.
Who is in Ruhindi is in Kampala in Nakawa East. No, don't bring that.
We know the story.
Nonsense. Don't degrade our conversation with that kind of thing, because we must speak from a place of realism. Yeah. So without that invisible hand, it is very difficult for someone
to be yellow and then you sweep.
Yes. Or it's not impossible. It's not impossible as we have seen, but it's kind of difficult. Why? Because the people immediately will voice.
Yes, I get you.
With the concerns of the opposition. Bias. It's the same way as it is, how hard it is in the West. To be NUP, DP, UPC, CP.
I think the closest we almost had was the late Major General Kazoya.
Yes.
For Mbarara. It's the closest that the West almost had for an FDC. Yeah. At the peak of Besigye too.
Yes, and we've had Mwijuche in... but this is more about personal brilliance than really...
That's what I was going to get to. This is more because even in Kampala, the people who have swept, people will look at them as Nicholas, as Harold, as opposed to them identifying with a certain political party. Yes.
So, to say that someone has defected, what does it mean, therefore, from what I have said? From what I have said, what it means is, if I have seen that the wave has shifted in Uganda from Democratic
DP
Party
to NUP.
Why? Because now people don't see DP as a party anymore. They see it actually when you say I identify with the DP, they know you're in bed with Museveni. Why? Because the party is in a whatever agreement with the NRM. Yeah. So
there's been the joke this week that it was not an MOU, it was an employment agreement.
That it was a milk card, and I will come to that. But if the wave has now shifted, and I say that the new wave is NUP, then I come and pledge allegiance to the man in the Kavure. Yeah. That is why in 2001, in that election, this group of the Mbugas, Segonas.
That's 2021, not 2001.
2021, sorry. Yeah. When that group comes, most of the people in that group, most of the people in that group don't even reckon the Honorable Chaguranyi as
the person to take them to the promised land.
Yes.
They just know that without, they just know that it's very risky to verse this wave. You would rather identify with it.
And if you remember later, when I've finished this point, you can ask me and I will talk about that for a second. Yeah? Why everyone sees Bobby Wine as just a guy. You allow me to talk about it. If you remind me. So when they come, they don't really see that this is the party that, no. They just know that this is where the wave is. That's how this of Abedwanika come in.
Yes.
Mpuga comes in, comes back. Of course, the numbers as the Mwanga Chivumbi is everyone comes back in the wave, and as many people as in Uganda, the wave sweeps over. At local councils everywhere, even people who don't believe, even people who don't know what is the ideology of the NUP. No wonder, as soon as these people stepped in, because of the lack of ideology that I am talking about, they soon sold out. They're in bed with the speaker, they're in bed with the state in different, so they start to undermine the party. The same party that brought them forward, they start to undermine it. Why? Because they truly did not subscribe to its ideology, if any.
I get you.
Yeah? All that they wanted was, what is my political mirror card? Who can give me the next political mirror card?
Who can I stand
Otherwise,
on?
you cannot tell me, Harold, sorry, you cannot tell me that you're the leader of opposition in parliament and you are in bed with the speaker of parliament.
And over a deal that does not benefit the people.
Yes. No. What came out in the light was that 500 million thing.
But there was more.
You know? But you don't know how much more. This is someone who is fighting, has checked the Zakes off the commissions. They are doing undercover deals. A lot of rot is being reported. You're the leader of opposition. You have been given the mandate. Yeah? You're in bed.
I get you.
That goes back to the lack of... It means that it's done. I am here to just pick what I can pick and go. I don't care what the Ugandans are being stolen from.
It's actually a personal ideology.
Yes, this is it, yes. So there is nothing in me apart from virtual signaling and empty sloganeering. Yeah.
But let me ask you something, just on that very point. I was doing some research and I was amazed how so small the parties that led the different African countries to independence, how irrelevant they are currently in their politics of those different countries. And you'll be shocked that the oldest parties, you'll find them in Ethiopia, ANC in South Africa, Chama cha Mapinduzi in Tanzania, and the likes, that even the Kanus in Kenya are no more. In the generations where we have had even a younger generation coming in, and they have taken on the leadership space, and it's elite politics, how come even up to now we are still talking about lack of ideology in Africa for political parties where there's a lot to stand for and a lot to oppose?
Thank you, Harold. I think the biggest problem that we have as Africans is the shortness of our visions. The reason why most of the parties at independence are not present right now is because their ideology was centered about chasing the whites. The ideology was
managing the country.
Yes, their ideologies was centered about, because people would later vote them out in Ghana, in wherever. People would later
realize that there was no difference with what they hated about the white.
Exactly.
Apart from the whole.
And these were, and you can even say that about even the individuals. If you talk about the Kwame Nkrumahs, if you talk about the whos, some of them were deposed in coups and whatever, but even the national wave had shifted away from them. Yet they were very, very heroic figures during the struggle for independence. Yeah? So the vision that they had was, let's take this country away from the whites. Why? Because they overtax us, they take this. Righteous causes. Yeah? But that is different
from when you have the power.
From now when you have the power, and what policies now you
bring in place.
You bring in place
to defend the difference that you're fighting for.
Yes. So I think that was why most of the historical parties, later were defeated. Now, coming down to Nsibambi and the people that are defecting now, I have already told you that. So the ideological difference of someone who is in the FDC, the NRM, the NUP, the DP, may not be different on whatever. Personal convictions actually sometimes become the ideology of say, but it is bad that the state incarcerates people. It is bad that our youth cannot find jobs.
So I can't identify.
It is bad that this can. So you find that your sentiments align with the opposition. And most of the times in Uganda and in most of Africa, it is the opposition of the day. Yeah? That's why now the opposition of the day is NUP. Yeah? So, except of course where the UPC, but like I told you, now this now we're used to tribal. We're used to, so around the area of where Obote, they still see Obote is their hero. This is the greatest man to ever come from their community ever. So they will always honor his memory. This is sentimental. This is not ideological. That we support the UPC because this is what they want to do. This is sentiment. This is a sentiment that this is our person. Yeah, this is our person. So it's more of a sentiment that you have Jimmy Akena with maybe his 10 MPs from that region. UPC,
and it's just that region.
It is just there. You cannot find that someone has won an election in Bushenyi, which is UPC stronghold, that they are UPC.
Nyamurunga in Bushenyi and
same sentiment that the West is predominantly yellow because this is their person.
Guy.
Yeah, and some of them believe, even those who don't profit from the system, believe that as long as our guy is there, at least.
That's the argument, because it leads me to what I want to talk about. The whole issue with cult heroism. Defining our politics. That if Ignatius Kangavyo Msazi dies, ANC dies.
Yes.
Obote dies, UPC dies.
Yeah.
If this one dies, this one dies. And we can go on and on. In fact, one of the saddest things that has happened to Uganda's democracy and its representation is the transition of the FDC and how the exit of Kizza Besigye was handled. The argument being that the internal fightings of what Ugandans to have hope that you can have someone who started a political party step aside and the party remain with relevance. But that person being, of course, firstly for the critics saying that he was the downfall of it, with seconding this person and not seconding this person. Yet in that area, you want to be selfless, push a legacy more than the personal sense of belonging. So when that happens and the FDC has, I think, given birth to 4 political parties. Literally. That's the reform agenda, the original reform agenda, which actually brought on board every revolutionary that was no longer identifying with the rule of Museveni. That even after their demise, the FDC remained the FDC. But look at how many MPs are now represented in parliament, even when the person is still alive. Look at the people that are fighting for Besigye's cause. It's people who identify with him as a person who represents opposition politics in Uganda. If you talk about the NRM right now, even before the old man starts to hold a stick and the back is bent, and immediately there's the new guard and then the old guard before he packs. And you can imagine what will happen in the demise of the man and what will befall the political party. The DP, the first time it brings on a non-Muganda president, from what we were talking about, people who left the party were saying, this man is going to sell the party.
No. Actually, when Mao becomes the president, I think it was in Uganda Obusi, it was in the West, it was in the East.
The election was in the East.
Some people, because the ideology of the party
was, you are a Muganda, you are Catholic.
People walk away because they see that this is a speech, on the grave of the founders who said this party has to be a Catholic and a Muganda.
Yes.
Can you imagine that? And
I remember the speech of Mao in that conference. He was saying that he represents Uganda with a northerner of a dad, a Muganda of a mom who grew up from the West. To just try to put up a place that, look, even before I've become president, I have worked tooth and nail for this party, and I deserve to be president. But everyone else who identified, and we must understand that at the time Mao comes in, DP had just served the elite force of our central MPs in Buganda.
Yes.
It had the most vibrant youth wing, even more than the NRM, with Nkoba Zambogo and UID.
And I don't think that there has been a party with a more vibrant youthful group
wing
than Nkoba Zambogo. Yes. At least from what I have seen.
Yes. It was serving elite lawyers all over for legal activism. The most famous campaigns of Walk to Work and what were birthed by these MPs that we are talking about. Also to add that even when you are talking about student politics, DP was at the helm without a president, but it was a representation of something that identifies as DP in all forms. Buganda, Catholic, and even when it was diluted with other religions, but the Buganda thing came in place. So the discussion of defections in Uganda it's a wrong discussion because we do not have political parties by the definition of the word political parties.
Yes.
we can't discuss defections if you ask someone who's defecting what they represented and what they're going to represent.
Yes.
And the answer is amorphous. If you ask Kansibambi what he was opposing, that's why the commonest speech you will hear from everyone is that for the good of the country, let's work with the government. If you do a how about follow-up question, there's no one who has an answer. How about that they did this to the constitution and enlarged term limits, that they increased the age limit? What do you say of that, of the abductions and etc.? There's no answer to that because they are trying to sanitize their decision of the fatigue to fight, the need for a meal card, the internal wrangles in the opposition for them to identify with the ruling government and such to earn a living, and that is the end of their fight of why can't I just join them since I can't defeat them. That kind of discussion altogether. So I think we are over amplifying the word defection.
Yeah, because what I wanted to ask, and I saw a big function at the secretariat. They were welcoming Nsibambi. I want to ask you, Harold, what does Nsibambi bring to the NRM?
You actually looking at it as the wrong way. That function was not from Nsibambi.
No, I understand the speakers, how she's,
Yeah, the function was for the speaker.
She's putting up a cabaret show, yes. Yeah.
But if you talk about...
Because...
It's an advantage for Museveni who wants to...
When you defect, when you bring someone on board, yeah? They brought Thomas Tayebwa on board, Youthful Energy. Yeah? You can applaud. You brought Anita Among from the FDC to the NRM, good mobilizer. I don't think that there is now a political mobilizer as more effective as Among, honestly speaking.
First, and then the Prime Minister comes in because
Prime Minister is
by nature she was a mobilizer.
But Prime Minister is a mobilizer at village level.
Yes. On grassroots. This one is grassroots. This is high class.
This is, if you want an effective mobilizer right now, it has to be Anita Among. We have to give her flowers.
Definitely.
That you can disagree with her, but there are fewer people who have, the force of will, the sheer force of will that can mobilize effectively, and even the people who left the FDC with her can see how she used to, mobilize for them funds because she used to be the treasurer of the party.
Even Nsibambi talks about it.
The Onzimas were brought on board because then the West Nile was stubborn. That was a little bit post-war. So they needed to make alliances to move into that space of West Nile. Maracha, Terego, Arua and that whole link.
Yes.
You had the Beatrice Anywa, coming because also of that part of the north which was post-war and it was an FDC, FDC stronghold. The people that you are mentioning, you have Chibanzaga. Chibanzaga came primarily because how Kasese, sentiment of Kasese. So the government got someone who could face the king because he was the king's brother, who could face the king and put up fight the government's battles with the king. Sure. Yeah. And that's why he saw at State House and saw to the, and they promised him this, they gave him a ministry. 5 years later, he lost the mandate and they threw him off. Yeah. So, of course, Mao, you can say DP and whatever. Yeah. You can say there's something that they add to. But Yusuf Nsibambi, he has been MP in Mawakota. Has
Deputy President in the Central, then FDC Chief Whip in Parliament.
Yes. He has now been voted out. He is old. He said in his interviews of his, because now his new job is, I think is now is like a blogger because he's always on, I think he's about to even sit on Kasuku Live now. He said that on his nomination, he was sitting in a wheelchair. Yeah? So his health is frail. He has lost the mandate of the people. What is this that we are celebrating, bringing him on board?
Yes.
What is this asset? Yeah. Yesterday, somewhere, and this was Boda Chipo, someone said that is like a girl who refuses you to when they are 20, 23, 20, 25.
When they are 45.
They come when they are 45, 40.
Single mother of
4 children. And they are like, but you know what? You used to love me back then. No. What value does the NRM get from Nsibambi?
I get you.
That it cannot get from, But in campus, there is what we used to call Mugat Party. Now,
I remember that phrase.
Mugat Party was a party, and I want to say this, I hope you will forgive me, is my guy. There was a guy who used to call Bashir Kavugo. in Lumumba, we served on the same SCR when I was GRC. He was our culture minister in Lumumba, and I think he was
the representation.
No, the president of Mugat Party, campus-wide. Now, this was a party which had no ideology, had no side, had nothing.
Whoever feeds them.
Where there is bread, today they can be doing the rally for Okot, Boniface. Tomorrow they are going to be for a decade. Yes. Because for them, it's not about...
Mogati is
where the bread is today. So today, if the rally is at Northcote, at Nsibirwa, they are going to go there and support candidate X. Tomorrow, if there is a rally at Galloway in Molago, and the candidate of DP now is the one who has given them candidate Y, the Mugati. Wherever the Mugati is where they will be, and they had a big force.
There's this narrative that has been pushed, of course, with the history of Nsibambi. And we've oftentimes talked about monetization of politics. This is the last one on this point, before we go to the next. Monetization of politics and the Latif Sebagalas, the people who have... Yesterday I saw a very stronghold, one of the people on national TV, where they were asked of... Everyone knows that person is an opposition legend, but they said, look into the camera and tell us if you have not met the president. He said, of course I've met the president many times. But the representation of those people, and as people who are collecting envelopes from State House, and now they are saying, why are we hiding? But people like Nsibambi are not broke people. I think Nsibambi's story is that I think when they were registering Greenbank, he was the legal counsel. Instead of paying him, he said, give me, I think, was it 1 or 2 shares? And they give him the shares. Nsibambi was at the helm of Kampala District Land Board. And I think many titles have been talked to be in his names. I think he owns very many establishments and what to say.
He even told the story how he was a lawyer of Gaddafi, and Gaddafi gave them so much money.
A lot.
That it could not even be checked, to be cleared through and the airport. They had to call him.
Yes, they had to call him and say, call the old man. Yes. And then diplomacy, what.
He's a rich man.
He's a rich man, that's what they say.
And he's very well studied. He's a professor of law.
Yes. He's really grounded. And also what FDC would actually lose most from him is the financing. And
which NRM doesn't need.
In the world of gladiators, there's no camp that would be excited by bringing on Nsibambi and giving him a sword to fight in the yellow arena. The point that a win, let me just put it this way. It's a win for the NRM, but not a loss for the opposition. Because on the larger picture, Nsibambi just represents what Museveni wants to say. There's democracy and the opposition is weaker and weaker, and even these people who have been mobilizing have since crossed. But there's nothing that would be taken away from the FDC that is not already taken away by the internal fightings that are a representation of everything that we have talked about since we began on this point. Because how does the FDC become the FDC right now, where Nsibambi is more relevant than he was, whilst a chief financer but not relevant on the leadership? Because Nsibambi joined the FDC. I sat in Nsibambi's class and he would spend 30 minutes talking about the FDC or talking about the evil that the government is doing and how he is supporting directly. But when they go to State House in the wake of 2021 election, pick money, bring it in a bag, take it to Besigye. The conversations that follow that lead the splitting of the party makes these people relevant, that a part of people who are just supposed to support the cause, maybe financially or what, now are at the helm of leadership. That the person who had never thought about standing is going into the political space. And there's a way it leaves you in Uganda. And to think about defecting 1 month later after a loss, it's a man saying,
yes, but I think that... I like you've said, honestly, I've tried to think why Nsibambi would be doing this. You know, could it be frustration? Could it be... This is a man who has not been... You know, sometimes, maybe in the NUP, you could say maybe the Mpugas were in a way fought, by their own party. So there's this animosity that they present towards... people are saying, these are opposition people who... Obusungu babu yena nyoku... Co-opposition, and I can see Munyagwa every time Munyagwa is hosted. Osunga gwina ku Bobby Wine. You have had a chance to do everything he has done. You have been MP. You have had a political party. You have run for president. Lwacho Osunga gwina ku nupu. maybe present your case better. You know, it's not people's problem that they believe in Noop more than they believe in your party.
So let me switch you on our second topic.
Before we switch, I wanted to just finish this point by saying, and by warning Ugandans, that there is now a new crop. That's why I was bringing the party of Kabugo Bashir, who was Mugati Party. Is that these are politicians who have absolutely no ideology, and this is the same point that we are trying to make here of why defections, and why you're going to continue seeing them, not just in opposition to government, but also in opposition.
Even
also
in opposition.
If the new wave was, let's say, Beboen doesn't come back from
wherever
he is, and tomorrow Barry Mwezo picks up the mantle and said, I have a party called Boxers Uganda Association, and it takes over
Uppercut
Party,
National,
and it takes over the opposition space in Uganda. You're going to see everyone whose constituency, believes in opposing the government, cross to Uppercut Party. So, but I wanted to warn, therefore, of the Mugati Party. No ideology, and absolutely nothing they believe in. They believe where the milk card is. Yeah, and it is very, very unfortunate that a man of high standing, to be honest, you see some people are just still in Sibambi, that a man of high standing like Sibambi can fall to this, and continue to dishonor himself further by using the plight of the incarcerated Ugandan opposition fighters as a bargaining chip. Very, very, and I've seen another gentleman who is for him. I think he wears the Mugati Party as a badge of honor. It's called Vijirwa. Yeah. You can today. Let me give you homework, our viewers. You go and search about that man Vijirwa.
And see his history.
Yes, his history. Search about, and someone maybe can help us post in the comments. Search about why he left the NUP. Search about his scandal with the Speaker of Parliament. Later, he picked up a thing with, and I think he was moving around with Munyagwa. Now, he's also trying to use these. He was in Rosera the other day saying how he had gone to speak to these people. They are trying to use the plight of
but
people.
Those are career
people are incarcerated.
Yes.
They have not seen their families for 5 years. Some of them have not even been remanded yet. They are on remand, but they have not been scheduled when they are, Some of them are missing. Some of them are presumed dead. You want to use their plight that as a bargaining chip. How dishonorable. Yeah? So these are milk-card politicians that we must not, because it's not sustainable. Olivia Lutaya was out. Yeah. Was she not? She was. So the conversation should not be, how can I use this? But I'm then used that to, get the other people out. But if you don't address the
system issue,
where that someone clamoring for support for a political party is not a crime.
Yes.
As it's maybe he should be able to know this because he's a lawyer. Yeah? You should be able to know that if we don't put systems, these people are going to be brought out of, they're going to be given a blanket cover. Just accept guilt that you're a terrorist, you're what, they used you, the things they did to these of Olivia Lutaya. And honestly speaking, for me, I don't care.
I have to cut you short. Nicholas.
What these young people decide to do. Because prison is very hard. Yeah. So if they decide to say we are guilty, we are what, we are sellout, it's okay as long as they get out of prison. But for someone using this, but tomorrow when there is another rally,
then they arrest them again.
There is a by-election in Masaka of Namere and the other and Rose, and they now go back to support the Nupukan, then they are arrested again. So how long will that look?
Yes, I get you. I personally do not respect anyone that if politics were banned, that person would completely be irrelevant in society. So anyone who identifies as a career politician must not have my respect, and that's how I look at it. So some of the names that you were mentioning, I know they would not have place or relevance
if there was no
world of politics.
Yes. This whole
But you asked me to, and before I switch, you have a minute or two. You asked me to remind you about why Bobby Wine or Honorable Robert Kyagulanyi is seen the way he is seen by some people.
Okay. I think that Honorable Kyagulanyi defeats the logic of who should become a political leader in post-independent Africa. Yeah? Or 21st century Africa. Why? When you look around, the people that rise to become to the position that he's aspiring for one, have a long history in the politics of the nation.
That's true.
Yeah. Have a blood.
Family
Have
ties.
family ties or blood. You've seen Uhuru in Kenya.
That's true.
You've seen Odinga in Kenya. Tshisekedi in son
Congo.
of the biggest and long-standing opposition leader in
the Congo.
the Congo. They have a history in the army.
That's true.
You have seen the people of Tanzania, all of them come from CC, Chama cha Mapinduzi, you know, from youth to whatever they rise, they become a minister. Now finally they have a platform to stand, whether in government or opposition. Yeah. And anywhere in Africa where you will mention all the leaders of South Africa, all of them were in ANC, from the youth wing to anti apartheid struggles to, you know, clamoring for independence, and they have their line which they have followed since then. Yeah. So the disrespect that Honorable Kyagulanyi usually suffers is that Paul in the Bible, Paul says, yes, Paul says in the Bible that I am like a child born out of time. Paul is not part of the 12. Jesus comes and chooses 12 disciples. And the purpose of choosing 12 disciples is that in his absence, when he later goes back to the Father, these 12 men would continue the spreading of the gospel and continue to be the leaders of the church, what they call the Sanhedrin. Yes. Of course, Judas leaves, they become 11, then they appoint someone else, they become 12 again. Now, when Paul comes, and as late as Acts in the stoning of Steve, so Paul does not actually meet the Christ in any, sit under him in any manner.
That's true.
Yeah? He is given this word post when Christ has left. After, you know, the stoning of Stephen, those are all Acts.
And even with his history of persecuting the church.
Paul was a persecutor of the church. He was a chief Pharisee. He was
not a disciple.
He was not a disciple. He has nothing. So he has to work twice as hard.
As a Peter.
Yes. And sometimes when there are rumors of what is going on, he has to now again come from the field where
and
he
then
is.
Come to
Jerusalem. Come to plead his case in Jerusalem that have I not labored
and
like
defend,
the rest?
Yes.
Am I not an apostle like the rest? The rest are allowed to carry
even a woman moving around
with them. Am I not allowed to do that? But then later he says that I have labored more than all. Yeah. So the mantle of Peter being the disciple to the apostle to the Gentiles, like you, Harold, you're a Gentile. Yeah. So without Peter, maybe you will not be a Christian. Yeah. Is a position to Paul is a position that I find Robert Kyagulanyi in. That's why everyone, and everyone, I don't know who has not claimed that they have brought him on board. Everyone says, Feba Amuleta. Feba Batadika Daye. No, Feba Twagada Munyumba and Tumagamba J. Everyone claims they brought him. Everyone claims they, you know, and everyone sees him as unworthy. He does not have a name. Yeah. He does not have a history that he was part of
the
experience.
Yes,
people think he doesn't have the experience. He doesn't belong to a military family.
Yeah.
He doesn't belong to any place that people can say. So everyone sees him. Everyone gets a field day when they talk about it. Bloggers, failed politicians, ignore
historicals,
people who, especially these ones who were an MP. You know,
and then
so they feel they are wiser than him, but they just don't understand why he has a wave.
What he represents.
They just don't understand why he is able to pull people, why people believe in him, why he's able to be a leader of a party. And I think that is what disturbed these of Mpuga and Bwanikas, because they keep seeing him as unworthy. Yet there is something that has been bestowed upon him.
That's why you're in his house.
Yes, that's why that's how you to get a meal. Would Bwanika have become MP of Chimanya Kabonera without coming
after 2026
to NUP?
That the answer would be no.
Where is he now with his arrogance that he used to move around with? His arrogance. Homosexuals gave you a card that brought you to parliament. Yeah? So this viciousness, and I thought I could bring it out here. This viciousness that, and then this whole thing where everyone thinks they can just talk about Bobby Wine as, yesterday I saw Amuriat. He ran a party to the ground. He sold the party.
That's what I'm actually getting to.
Just
pause it at that, Nicholas.
He's you sold the party.
Just pause it at that because we are talking about the state of opposition politics in Uganda. And I understand your age because if you're pro-change, you look around and the beams of hope are very faint. And we can start this discussion with where we are coming from. on the defections. We can talk about the persecution of Bobby Wine that you're talking about, and how the opposition, he has more guns blazing from fellow opposition as much as what he gets from the government, especially on when people start to speak. I mean, guns figuratively. That's the state right now of the most main opposition. So look at the force that the government is putting against him. He's on the hunt. I think there were rumors last night that even the family had escaped from the house somehow, and that the police was guarding an empty house, like the soldiers were guarding an empty grave of Jesus Christ after resurrection. But look at that NUP as the main opposition party. Shift the eyes and go to FDC as the biggest opposition political party that we had at the time, from Reform Agenda to the FDC. And it's fate right now that you have PFF out of it, and then you have the FDC with Amuriat, with Nandara Mafabi, who performed maybe 2 point something. I think we read, and most of them were the East in his home ground, which is what we're talking about the allegiances from people, where people come from. Look at the DP, which has an MOU. We have joked and called it Mao's employment agreement with the government, and you don't expect objective opposition from it because of that nature. There have been very loud rumors about the FDC selling out through Amriat and Mafabi. NUP is facing what it is facing, being like in the opposition camp, they look at it as the ruling government, and then these other camps are opposing. In a way, you've seen, as you've said, Amuriat saying, don't lead in absence, come back home and lead. You've seen comments from Akena, who is relevant now because of the MPs that he has gained in the north, and making strong statements about the first son. His mind, I think he has treated Bobby Wine with some level of prudence and what's the word, with grace, basically. You look at UPC, as we've talked about, and then the 1,000 other political parties. Then DFF, that has just been formed by Mpuga and what it represents. I mean DF, sorry. So the state of opposition vis-a-vis what the government is ready to do to ensure that there's no opposition, and how prepared they are not to just be opposition, but take power and participate in the transition questions. What's the state of Uganda's opposition?
Well, Uganda's opposition, Harold, like you said, is in a dilemma like Cinderella Sanyu. The operational space has been shrunk so much so that to survive, you have to have a lot of cajoles, which many people don't have. Now, Museveni, when he said that he will not be opposition in Uganda in 2021, or thereabouts, this is what he had in mind.
There was already a plan in play.
2, carrot and stick. Carrot is,
I give you
since
money.
I understand, and this stems from the conversation that we had prior about ideology, because he knows everyone who belongs to, I respect the FDC originals, and let me call them originals. These are guys who outrightly walked out of the movement and said no. And by then, most of Uganda was actually, because then they were coming from the back of a one-party state or a movement system.
After even people believe that movement was NRM.
Yes.
During that referendum. Yes.
Most of the country used to identify with that system. So people who walked away at first, they remember the Manyamushegas, the Garugas, of course the Vesiges, the Karuhanga, Chapa Karuhangas, the so many, the Matembes, the Betty Kanyas, the Mujisha Muntus. Some left their posts, some left whatever. Even those who are not in elective politics, some left government departments, left the army, and said, you know what? We agree with the ideology of Besigye that the NRM has veered off the path. But Museveni later comes to understand that these opposition people lack ideology. They don't have... what keeps them in opposition is because their electorates are mostly predominantly opposition supporting. That's why they are opposition. Yeah, that's the reason why
someone in Uganda will not think about being NRM.
Yes, will not think standing. Even someone you see standing on NRM ticket in Uganda.
It's Mugati Party.
Yeah, you know that they're just maybe they're targeting something. Maybe become another CC, become something, but they know this.
It's a bargaining chip.
Yes, you see that kind of thing. So Museveni understands that these people are not
identifying with anything,
rooted in ideology or identity. What they are rooted in is opportunism. This is an opportunistic cause that puts them at advantages them to get into the National Assembly or serve in whatever capacity. So what does that mean? That means that what they want is actually money.
That's the carrot.
What fuels their convictions is that they have a place that they can stand. Yeah. So what if I give them that? Yeah. So he does the carrot. Has bought out as many
as he can,
as he has been able to do. Yeah. Some of course gives
there.
Some of course gives them a ministry. Some he gives
their heart's desire, which is money directly.
Which is money. Others it's authority. Someone wants to be a minister. Yes. Like I'm always the defection that I failed to understand, I think, was of Joyce Sebugwao. Failed to understand that. You know, a loyalist, a sweetheart of the people, a very, very, very dignified woman, old in age, an example in society.
You have served.
You look grounded, well off. Up to now, I've never made.
For Joyce, it was basically opposition fatigue.
Up to now, I have never made sense of Joyce Sebugwao's.
It was fatigue.
You know, I've never made sense. I can understand.
Fatigue, yes.
I can understand the Nachiwaras because these are not grounded people. These are people that are everywhere where money can be. Yeah, but for Joyce Sebugwao, it's defeated. Up to now, I want to make more research on that kind of thing. Now, when he opens up that front of the carrot, what?
Whichever fish could not fit in the net.
Thank you. Stick. Yeah. But now, because of the continuous increase in the unpopularity of the NRM, because that one you cannot argue with, that the NRM party, every day that goes by,
there's a battery bar that goes off.
Yes, every day that goes by, you cannot. There is no day that you will say that this new day, like tomorrow or today, you cannot say that today the NRM is more popular than it was 24 hours ago. You can. I don't think that would be the right assessment. No matter how you can talk about statistics, bring election, whatever, everything.
Yellow t-shirts.
When we take away the theatrics and the shows, behind the curtains, when we take off the masks and we are now not acting anymore, we can understand that every single day that goes by, the NRM party is less popular than it was the previous day. Yeah. So, what does that happen? What does that mean? That means that now he opens up the carrot and there is a stick. Yeah? By Museveni refusing to relinquish power. Yeah? Of course, at first, the FDC people used to think, okay, maybe term limits will hold him. Term limits never held him. Age, he defeated it. So most of these opposition people started to realize that, you know what, maybe we are fighting a war that is a losing war. Yeah? So they surrendered themselves. They surrendered themselves like Kanonyaho. Yeah? Like the gentleman that Chiza was telling us about.
Yes.
Kanonya. Yeah?
I was comparing Zibambi.
Yes. So they surrendered themselves and said, you know what, we are fighting a losing war. Let's join hands with the government. But for those that stay, the stick has effectively become so harsh, Harold, you know?
It's really bad.
And we've come to a level where, and let's sympathize. You see, sometimes we analyze these issues without sympathizing with the people that, because right now to be in opposition, you're serving at the pleasure of the government.
Your family doesn't understand you because it's even a life risk.
No, you're serving at the pleasure, because if what you saw happen in Masaka, what we saw here in Kampala Central, what we saw in Nakawa East, what we saw in Kawempe South, what we saw in many places. Do you know this lady? Actually, for me, I was telling friends a few weeks back, any NRM person who did not win here in Uganda, was just not serious. Because this was the time to get 2,000 votes. The first person has 25,000.
In the middle of the pitch.
21,000, you get 2,000 votes. You actually are announced as the winner, and there's nothing they can do. They will take the case to court. They give it to one of these acting cadre judges. They throw it out. You're elected, and this was the time. And anyone, I saw this lady here, the one who was standing with Councillor Narukora.
Yes.
She polled 8,000.
Nambi.
Yeah, Nambi. She polled, I think, about 80,000 votes.
And they wanted to round off.
Narukora had about 25,000. Yeah? Not even in the general, even in the past election.
Yeah.
But she's there claiming they want to arrest they hire these arrogant, these Mugatigwa party people. Yeah? Chifesi and whatever. And they want to force the EC official to announce results in the contrary.
They had to run away from
people have deliberately. But do you know what could have happened there? What could have happened there is that they would have said Nambi has 28,000 people, Narukora has 8K, and Nambi would now be would have been designated right now, gazetted, and now it's Narukora is trying to go to court. The richest court, they throw his case to the familiar judges who were talking about in the last podcast. They throw it out, and there is absolutely nothing the people of Kawempe North can do about it. Yeah. So the space has shrunk from that kind of election fraud to the injustices in court. Yeah. Let's take a look at Parliament. Yeah. Zake is forced out of being a commissioner in Parliament. And there is nothing you can do about it. The party writes and says, this is our commissioner. According to the law, we provide someone who becomes one of the commissioners of Parliament. This is, they say, the speaker says no. But also, this speaker rules Parliament with a very heavy hand. That's why I saw Namuganza coming out passes, honorable, that she also wants to run for speaker. And her biggest selling point is that this is not going to become a space of fear.
Which means that's a status quo.
Yeah, yes. Because this current...
even Wanyoto, Lydia Wanyoto has declared.
Yeah, I've seen, but Lydia Wanyoto...
We can talk about it later.
My sentiments on her, the way she talks, the way she does her politics is public material. I'm always really...
You have your reservation.
Yeah, but... let me not get diverted from my point. Maybe we'll talk about, if you remind me later, we can talk about Wanyoto. So, this lady is ruling Parliament with a very heavy hand. The rumors are, allegedly, to get trips.
Yeah.
To get to be put on committees.
You have to bend the knee.
To get to, have any kind of thing, have anything. And I think this is how she managed. If people are weak of heart, which I will conclude with. If you're weak of heart, you become Mr. Vitano. You just say, you know what? Since the space cannot allow me to function the way I would like to function, what is there for the taking? Yeah? So the rumor is that at Parliament, to even sneeze, and this is not just to opposition, this is also to the ruling party, MPs, to be added to the team to participate in the games, to have a trip to say we are,
East African Parliamentary Games.
Yes. Parliament has many trips, benchmarking on this, committees that are sensible, You have to bend the knee. Yeah? You have to bend the knee. You have to come and be humble and say, you know what? I decrease that you might increase, madam. Yeah? So the space for the opposition to function has become so shrinked, yeah, that sometimes you want to maybe understand the people that are not strong enough, because now it needs the strength that stems from ideology, where you say, Kagwake, Ketonye, I am able to sacrifice that trip. I am able to be in bad. And do you know how these people were fought? How aggressively some of the opposition figures like Senyonyi were fought? Actually, for me, I had a lot of fears that Bowe would win that. Not win. I'm telling you about the thing I was saying about justice is in court. I had so much fear, Harold,
that there could be a shock.
That someone was a judgment was going to come out and be like, No. These people who everyone here did a bad name, and right now I would be about to be represented by Bogwe,
Ivan Bo.
who has never come to where the area, has never campaigned, has never asked for the mandate, but for the purpose that Joel Senyon should not make it back to parliament, would rather have, someone that we can ally with.
It's Nicholas. So, I see our director looking at us with an eye government gives opposition.
So they have been besieged on all sides like a defeated army.
I get you. So sometimes for those, the danger as you discuss it is people. There are those who have succumbed to the carrot. They would rather eat and let go of the fight. Those who are tired really and helpless, losing hope that change can't come through the system as set. And then there are those who are also in fear of the effects of the stick, and they see the tear gas, they see the dirt in, and they would rather refrain. And then also the bigger side, people who are viewing, and this has nothing to do with the government, Nicholas, people who view opposition dominance as a rivalrism. That as long as they have a post in opposition and they have a ministerial, a member of parliament seat or whatever, they have arrived. They don't want to do more because this status is okay. And they are not hungry enough to say we can challenge the status quo. And that's what even explains the other side that we're talking about of the Maos. Why would you get a whole party and as president without surrender it really to the ruling party? And also talking about the shrinking space. I think in the last episode we talked about a little bit how they would do a lot post-election to shrink the civil space. We saw the fruits of it with the closure of NGOs.
Yes.
I talked about something that is being designed for social media.
Someone has come out actually. This lady, she's a mobilizer of the NRM in Chambogo. She's called Namnyaro something. I think mostly her things are on TikTok, which I don't follow keenly. I saw her talk about it, that we should have something about social media, about controlling TikTok.
So I told you, and I have it from a credible source who gave us the first information about something being cooked. That right now the software has already been imported and there are trainings going on for something called Order Fence. Now, Order Fence has been imported from Israel and India, if what they're saying is true, and it's a rumor, but it ties in what we're talking about. There's even a notable law firm, if I say the name, you'd know, that has been hired to see if the terms and conditions would have issues of constitutional interpretation or break any law, or if they need to edit the Computer Misuse Act to fit in the narrative. So we will see an increment in abductions, censorship of podcasts, of social media, of whatever we've been doing. And it has already started for who is being monitored and what. And in light of what they are doing to the opposition, in light of the Computer Misuse Act, we've talked about the Maoris being in court and stuff. And this coming, we can only know that we are heading for the reign of terror, and if things stay like that. But just in a short while for the remaining topics, Nicholas, there's been Reorganizing Kampala, the state of our capital city. And this week we saw the minister come out and also KCCA director talking about chasing the traders off. And as of, I think Thursday, 8 p.m., that was the ultimatum. They talked about the posts that have been created in different markets, and they were saying that all the traders should relocate to those different markets. And that being said, as of Friday morning, whoever was on the streets was taken off, and Kampala streets are without traders. But also in the same week, we have roadside traders, thank you, and vendors,
yes,
and street, those who go around. Also in the same week, we saw, I think, one of the worst traffics we have seen in Kampala, not the PG one, but within the city. Roads slippery, people spending 3 hours taking kids to school and stuff like that. We've also seen the usual of the flooding. We've talked about the private-public partnerships of the development of the city and the state of our city and etc. Talking about the Kampala master plan that has always remained a pharisee, and the state of affairs is what we are seeing, and also by the way, the first son came and saying that there's a mission to reorganize Kampala. That has also been talked about in this topic. Don't kill the messenger. So what did you read from those stories, and is it a viable thing? Is it a good thing? A direction we are taking over tugende twebake?
No, I think that one, we can agree on some things. Yeah. And also, two things can be right at the same time. Number one, the reorganization of Kampala is long overdue. Kampala is in very urgent need of reorganization. Because if you go to Nairobi, if you go to the regional cities that at least I have been to personally,
bad, yes.
you feel really, you wonder how Eldoret here in Western Kenya is more organized than the capital city of the whole country, Uganda. Yeah? So, what are the attributes, of a modern city? One, there must be mobility, smart mobility. Transport, thank you. There must be urban planning and design.
That's true. Zoning. Approved structures.
Thank you. Yes. Living, saying if there is places, these markets can only be in this side. Supermarkets can be the other side, hospitals and everything. Space for the metro, space for the whatever.
Administrative blocks, the other side.
Utility management.
Electricity, water, internet.
Water, everything like that. And of course, accessibility to services. Yeah? Just to mention but a few. Yeah? Without going into, of course, modern cities, depends on how modern you want it, but we are not talking about South Korea, we're not talking about, we are bringing it to the African perspective. We are, Turiwano. So don't talk about
Tuli Abuja, Tuli Pretoria.
Yes. So Kampala is in very, very urgent need of reorganization, and I think that the move in and of itself of chasing traders from the streets is actually a good move.
Big start.
Yes, a big start, a good start. Yeah, because picture around Gazaland, Chikubo, you can't pass. Everyone cannot go there. Traders are all over it. Thieves. People can't drive there to shop. Nobody can drive to Chikubo to shop. You have to park somewhere at Watoto, then go down, then buy things, then put them on something, then take them back up, then go. So I think that, and that is a culture that
we made peace with.
Yes, we made peace
we should not
with that culture. But if you want to build a modern city, you are going to have to bring some kind of order. And that's the problem, not just with the city, but with the country, is that this country has absolutely no order. Someone will put a bar in a residential place, someone will put a church in a farm place, someone will put a farm in a residential. There was a gentleman, I think, I don't want to talk about it. I don't like to talk about pastors, but I think he has a pig farm or poultry in the middle of, and they will create a lot of that pollution, that stench in the middle of So we need to urgently reorganize the city. However, the question is how. Yeah, how? Because these policies, you can't copy and paste them. You must have a plan, and this is a problem that we don't have in the country. The question is, these people that are being chased off the streets, where are they going?
They talked about over 1,870 something spots that have been created.
Thank you. But how many vendors do you have on the streets of Kampala?
And they've talked about the plan to reincorporate the rest in the markets that are yet to be created, both government and private.
So if they are yet to be created, why are you chasing this? How much time have you had to actually plan these markets? If they started 5 years ago at the commencement of the other Chisanja and said, the next Chisanja we want to chase these people off the streets. Yeah? Let's say we have 30, 40, we have about, let's say we have about maybe 500,000 or 200,000 vendors on the streets of Kampala. This is, I'm assuming this is on all the streets of
Metropolitan, yes.
Metropolitan. So this including Kawempe, Rubaga, Nakawa, Central and Machindi. Yeah? So How are you going to incorporate? If you're taking these people off the streets, where are you going to relocate them? Yeah,
There must be a plan.
the markets you talk about, Harold. How much is a store? Yeah,
Who goes there to
acquire
shop?
it? Who goes there to shop? Oh no, who goes there to shop can of course. The reason why people don't go there to shop is because if I find something on the street,
Why should
if
I?
you can find something on Wandege at that bakery, what is the bakery called in Wandege? Why should I have to first look for parking and go to the market?
I get you.
If I know I can just, as I'm driving,
A little
I'll-
branch off,
yeah,
pick chicken, go.
pick something there, pick even groceries,
Groceries and go.
That does not incentivize me. It does not motivate me to first
So now go up to level 3.
I'll go to
buy
go to
bananas.
the market. But if I come and I shop from
It's
one
good
day
parking.
and I don't find vendors on the street where I usually buy my things, then I have to turn back to the market and get something. So this is cause and effect. Yeah. So, but how many stalls do you have? Yeah. How many people can afford?
The stores.
Because these people that trade down here don't even have capital or whatever. All they do is they go to the guys in the Vizimbe who import and whatever and have big shops. They say,
Pick merchandise.
give me 50 pairs of shoes. They give them 50 pairs of shoes. They come down to the street. Maybe in the day they sell 20. You say, okay, they will pair mitware ebiri. So if he has been
What
selling
is
at
this?
25 or 30,
Takes the 5 on
takes
20
that,
pairs.
takes back the stock, does that the next day. So in and of themselves, how many of them can afford
To
the
get
prices?
the money, buy a
Yes,
store,
buy a store. Yeah.
set up.
So the question is, so this surplus, and that's why you're going to see increase. You don't need to be a
Right.
prophet to know that there's going to be increased. Because at the time they had done it, you're going to see a lot of increased crime in the city. Now I understand that personally, people like me that have really soft hearts are usually moved by seeing KCCA. They come, they swing in, they take a woman is vending mangoes. They are really trying to. They have a baby on their
School
back.
fees and what.
Yeah, they are after very basic need of just feeding my
Survival.
people, survival. They swipe, they take the things, they just throw them on, they take them to the court at City Hall. It's a bad sight. And seeing them take away these people from where they are earning something really is a very bad sight, for anyone to look at. But you must understand that building the city,
Comes at a cost.
it
but
must
there
come.
should
It
be,
must
yes,
come at a
There
cost.
should be
Yeah.
a rehabilitation
Yes.
system.
Yes, but there must be a way. These people that have been chased off the streets can be absorbed, by the existing structures or in the very immediate. Because if you're saying the markets that are not yet, I saw the KCA director talking about it, how they are going to create space of 10,000.
By this time,
Those
there were milestones.
those things usually take 3-5 years. So what should these people do? They go back to the villages. They go back to the slums. What should they do in the meanwhile? Yeah. So and that
We
is
have
the
to-
problem that we have with our planning, is that some of these things now I've heard about border borders, that there are stages, they designated them, they did everything for them. But the question is, Harold, border borders don't come to the city except, I think last week we talked about the people who go abroad, Kadamas.
Yeah.
We talked about the push factors. Border borders actually are not in and of themselves the ones that want to come, but it is the failure of having
Find
a
alternative.
good public transport. There is always going to be a guy looking for a border stage. Let's say the border stage is at Mabirizi. Yeah. Another stage is down at
Maybe at
Boulevard.
Commission.
At Electoral Commission. So how
Former
about the
Electoral
people?
Commission, yes.
How about the people who
Who
work
wants to pick a border from where?
from the Boulevard?
Yes, yes.
So I walk back.
Parliamentary
I
Avenue.
walk to Mabirizi from Parliamentary Avenue. I walk down from Nema.
Call a taxi.
From that area of Victoria University.
Yes.
So I first walk down to.
To
So is it
Veterinary
realistic?
Park, yes.
The things that we're implementing, are they always just say, oh, what is being done in Chigari? What sounds nice? Is it realistic? So when there are no, but in developed countries, and I was watching a documentary recently, I forget the country, one of these francophone countries in West
The last
Africa.
one on this point.
Maybe Senegal. I don't know. I forgot. I was watching this week how just a small train has changed, that has depopulated, has people can sleep in Jinja and work in Kampala. And it takes them about, I think, maybe an hour. In the morning, you're in the train by maybe 7:30. You're here 8:30. You're in the train by 7, you're here at 8. And in the evening, again, instead of that cuts on the jam that, is in Mukono, is in Boyogere, is in Seta.
But people spend 5 hours in some time.
One thing I was shocked about, I must say, a few years ago, like 2 or 3, is actually how close Mukono is. You never understand how close Mukono is to Kampala.
That's
because that part I was an alien to that part, because but then I realized Mukono is actually really close.
Yes. It's just
you're in Seta, you're in Namanve, you're in Boyogere, you're in town. So it's very short distance that people can spend 3 hours coming from Boyogere or Chireka to Mukono. Is something that surely should not be happening in the 21st century in this country.
Those stories that made news in the corridors of court this week, we thought we would highlight some of them for you to be in the know. So you can combine your reaction on that with your parting shots, and then we'll say bye to our viewers.
Thank you, Harold. Court always, what happens in court always, we have spoken about it many times. Everyone that is in court is now at the disposal of the forces that be, whether bail is pushed, whether habeas corpus is denied, whether,
you get any judgment.
These days it is not the strength of the opposing counsel, of the argument, of the firm, of the lawyer. It is actually more about how their negotiation skills, which is a very bad place to be in, I think. However, I want to finish with the election of the female youth member of parliament. That election, that college, is dominated mostly by NRM youth that have come through the NRM structures. And for the first time in these 2 elections, they have seen firsthand, because most of them are usually hiding behind. They are on the winning side. So every time we talk about equality, we talk about money in politics, we talk about mafiaism, we talk about, they see it as their problem, your problem. Because for us, we're on the winning team, Tshkuba. But I think Diana and Mercy have brought the reality of what it means to have 2 elephants fight.
I get you.
And the extent to which, because this is state against the mafia in the state,
That's a good representation.
Who has more money?
Who can influence the system?
Who can influence the systems, But I think, honestly, from the report that I got from many people that were there, that Mercy defeated Diana fair and square. Because these are just 440 votes. And the youth are vicious. They don't leave the site. They are there.
They will count in broad.
The truth of the matter is, Mercy had more money. Then some of them were blaming that people were supposed to give out Diana's money. They took part of it. They took little. Then the mafiaism, but Mercy was being supported by very strong PLU people. I don't understand their relationship or roots or interest in her candidature. But
like they've done with
Diana was flag bearer of the NRM, and she was defeated. Not by the opposition. She was defeated by actually someone
who is also
NRM, meaning that NRM does not really mind when the other person in the opposition is leaning towards the party. There is no ideological difference between Diana and Mercy. Absolutely no, if any. So I hope that the youth saw firsthand when people talk about money in politics, when people talk about the third hand, an invisible hand coming. Mercy had everything the state had to offer. Diana had everything the state had to offer, but still,
it fell short.
Yes, it fell short.
Well, every sunrise within the capital, Uganda, and every side of the country, and wherever you're watching, is just, as we hope, a ray of hope for you. And we still hope that you can wake up every morning with the zeal to work and be better, the zeal to represent what you stand for, not to be compromised by the arm of flesh, and we hope that your children and our children will live in a better Uganda. And some of these spaces and what we talk about here is to contribute to a conversation that we believe is very relevant as a driving force for the change that we want to see in this country. So if you have an idea or two that you want to bring on board, if you think you have a part to play in nation building, do not just sit on it, because it's the fate of your children that you are playing with. From me and the team, until the next episode of the Checkmate, we are out, and thank you very much for watching.